So there is something that I didn't make into the weekly dose of reviewing stuff yet, which is not my personal phone that I used to have. No, it's nothing, but rather something else that I want to make a review out of. So here we go, my current personal phone review and my experience that I have with this thing. Hey y'all, it's Ryukin here, and welcome to the weekly dose of reviewing stuff. And today, in this new episode of the weekly dose of reviewing stuff here, we are going to take a look at my first ever iPhone that I ever used. Yup, you heard that right, my first ever iPhone. So here's my first ever iPhone that I ever used. Oops, sorry guys, I didn't mean to show that, but you know, it's really important to show the screen. But even though, if you guys see anything on the screen, so just ignore it, pretend that it doesn't exist. So here's my first ever iPhone right here that I ever used at the time recording this. So actually, I'm using this phone right now at the time recording this as my current daily driver, and of course in the next 5 years or 10 years, it won't be the main phone anymore, but maybe it's going to be replaced by something else, a better Android or a better iPhone. And before we get into anything and my experience that I have with this thing right here, and before we get into anything all about the experience that I have with this iPhone 10 right here, so I'm going to take a look at my iPhone 10 in a retrospective way of 2017, because you know, this thing right here was first released in 2017, which it was 6 years ago or even 7 years ago now, depending on what time it is. So that doesn't really matter anyway. So I mean, at the time recording this, so this thing aged 7 years old now. So, but even though it was actually came out like back when I was in grade 6 or something, I was a little kid back then. So, well, and at the time this phone was released, I was using my Huawei P8, my second phone that I ever used. So this is going to be my fourth phone. So, but even though this thing right here, it doesn't even make it into the series yet, so I will make it. And without any hesitate, let's get the retrospective of an iPhone 10 of 2017 started, with the reflection of my Sony Handycam on the black glossy finish on the iPhone 10. Well, that doesn't help that much because I have Leica lens hood on it. Here, as we take a look at iPhone 10, the way it's shaped, form, and the beauty, it looks quite different from what the phone we have seen in that era. It has different models, different colors, and even different configurations. On the front here, I didn't mean to show that. And of course, it's going to be censored on YouTube. And on the front here, we can see the new Super Retina HD OLED display with the size of a whopping 5.8 and the resolution of 2436 by 1125 at 458 pixels per inch, making it the highest quality screen on an iPhone at the time. The bottom still always will a headphone jack since the times of an iPhone 7's headphone jack trouble, causing the entirety of the headphone jack to be removed from existence on the newer models. But that doesn't really matter anyways, because even Apple included the lightning to headphone jack adapter. The thing has a water resistance at IP67, which is enough for pulling out during the rain. The inside is an A11 Bionic chip with a 64-bit architecture, and well, the one that I have right here, it has a 4GB of RAM and 64GB of storage. And well, the camera. The camera altogether are 12 megapixels for each one for the normal angle and one for the telephoto lens. Some claims that this iPhone has a 2x optical zoom, which is kinda true, but except when you try to zoom in on something at the wireless area, it will immediately switches to the telephoto camera for greater detail. The flash, it has a two-tone, which is really bright compared to the other phone models at the time. The front camera is 7 megapixel true depth camera, and there is no autofocusing on the front camera like on the most of the smartphones these days, and including no zoom. The photos are naturally good. The 12 megapixel stills on the back camera still provides the great detail without having any digital artifacts for upscaling. At the maximum zoom of 10x, you can see the digital artifacts clearly. There is no zoom on the front camera obviously, and the quality still great as what it is 6-7 years ago. Comparing that to a Sony Xperia X1 for the same era as an iPhone 10, you can see that it's a complete different story. Display on the Sony Xperia X1 has a digital sharpening from the high resolution, and on the iPhone, it has a more natural image quality than what on the Xperia X1. The video on iPhone 10 is up to 4K at 60 FPS on the back camera and at 1080p for the front camera. The videos that were taken from this camera is quite good and it has an optical image stabilizer built in. So there is no settings to turn that off, or otherwise you would end up using the third-party camera app to do it. Comparing something to my Sony Handycam right here, like the one I'm using right now, when set the frame rate to PAL, you can see how much the difference that it really makes. And this also includes the audio test too from both iPhone 10 and my Sony Handycam, which is going to make a complete difference. So on iPhone, it's got only a mono microphone, and on my Sony Handycam right here, it uses stereo microphone. So the audio right here is going to be completely different from what is supposed to be. Although I didn't use the photo mode on my camcorder because it has a very similar photo quality to the front camera. And this is pretty much to give you an idea of what it looks like when comparing to my Sony Handycam when it comes to making YouTube content. The Sony Handycam that I'm using right now has 12x optical zoom, and the iPhone 10 has a 2x optical zoom and a 6x digital zoom for the video. The video snapshots are less pixelated than what in the photo mode is. And compared to my camcorder that has a 12x optical zoom, making a good sharp picture without having to crop the factor of the image to zoom in on something. And in terms of camera, well, let's take a look at it. So as you can see here on the camera on my iPhone 10, you can see that it has many various modes to choose from. And of course, when you switch to the slow mode and a time lapse, it immediately switches back to the back camera because the front camera just doesn't support it. And here's the video mode right here in a nutshell, so you can see that here's what it looks like. And of course, it has 6x digital zoom for the video and a 10x digital zoom for the photo mode. And there is no switch to the telephoto camera because it's actually automatically adjusts by itself when it's actually shooting at the wireless area. It's gonna use the telephoto lens instead of the actual main camera. It has a portrait mode, which is gonna use the one right here, the telephoto lens, and the square, which it takes the picture in a square, I think, panorama, which is going to take a panorama photo, and that's really it. So it actually includes a time-lapse mode, which is basically just interval the photo, and it's kind of just converts into a video. So this is pretty much useful for making vlogs. So when it comes to using a time-lapse, and slow-mo, which is useful for taking some hilarious moments in slow motion. And you can choose between either you want to choose from 240 frames per second or 120 frames per second. You can do 4K on this one too, but it's just only at the video mode. So you got 4K at 30 FPS and 24 FPS for 4K, and a PAL 25 frame rates per second on 4K, and HD at 25 frames per second. And there is an option here to turn on the LED light, which it is very bright, and compare that to the other phone models at the time, which is really bright, but though it's not the greatest, but it's actually bright enough to fill up the entire scene like this. And of course, it actually still shows as a flash photo, so I'm just going to turn that off because it's gonna eat up a lot of battery life. And well, so for the photo mode right here, you got a cell timer up to 10 seconds, of course. And you also got a live photo mode right here, which what it actually does right here, it actually takes a video with a photo. So this is actually what it really does. So you just want to turn that off anyways, because it's going to be complete unnecessary. And you got some filters right here, which is going to be looking like this. You got vivid, warm, just some typical iPhone filters that it actually has at the time. And for the portrait right here, you can choose from a natural light, you can choose from the studio light, contour light, stage light, which is just going to highlight something in the middle, and other else is just black out. And stage light mono is the same thing, but except in black and white. So that's really it. And otherwise, the same thing as square, and this one is just casually take a panorama photo, and that's it. No fancy stuff here. And on the front camera, well, it actually does support portrait mode, but it's just a software makeup. So, and here is the same thing right here on the square, and there is no panoramic front camera on this thing because it doesn't support it. And that's really it for the camera modes on iPhone 10 and showcasing all the features on iPhone 10. But what about the settings? And for the settings right here on the camera, you can see that here's a higher detail for the settings on an iPhone right here. For the camera, you can see that you got a composition settings right here. So you got a guide on or off, which I have turned on by default. Mirror front photos, which is going to mirror the front camera, which this is actually what it actually does. When you take a photo, the photo still mirror. So, but I just casually just turn it off because it's a complete unnecessary. So I'm just going to leave that off by default. And preset settings, you can choose from camera mode, filter lighting, and live photo. Which what it actually does right here is just going to leave as what it is. Like you have a video or square, other than automatically reset to photo mode. So, but even though I have all of them turned on, so I wouldn't have to lose off my original settings that I have. And for the format right here, which you can choose from most compatible or high efficiency, which you can choose between the most compatible or high efficiency, which is going to save in HCIF and AHEVC format, which is actually going to take some a lot of space. And the most compatible is only use JPEG and H.264, which is a basic standard for video formats that is using these days. Record video, which right now I have turned on to show off the PAL formats right here. So you can see that I have a 25 frame rates per second at 1080p, which I have showcased with my Sony Handycam right here in the area. And we also got 4K at 25 frame rates per second. And for 60 FPS right here, which only max out at 1080p when used high efficiency. But even though for 60 FPS, you will only going to choose the most, the high efficiency, which, in the most compatible, it's not going to work. So it's actually going to highlight or just going to, it's going to tell you that it only available in high efficiency setting. So video format control, which it only shows the video format control in the camera, like in the video mode. Lock camera, which it casually just do not automatically switch between cameras while recording a video, which I have it turned on for experiment. But even though what it actually does right here, but when you switch to the telephoto camera, it's just going to lock on there, so there is no way to zoom back to the main camera. So and when I turn off the show power formats right here, everything right here is just going to revert back to an NTSC frame rates, like you got 30 FPS and 60 FPS. And record slow-mo right here, you can choose from 1080p at 120 frames per second, 720p at 240 FPS or frame rate per second, and 1080p at 240 frames per second, which is only used in high efficiency settings, which, well, it's actually going to take up a lot of space, so that's why they actually said that it's only available in high efficiency. So that was really it for the camera settings. And enough with the comparisons and talking about the bunch of camera settings on this iPhone 10. And right now I'm going to talk about my experience that I have with this iPhone 10 right here. So, and without any further hesitation, let's get. Also, I'm going to call it my experience that I have with my iPhone 10. Alright, my experience that I have with my iPhone 10. So, and first of all right here, it's pretty much my first ever iPhone that I ever used in my entire life. But even though I just didn't have an iPhone, so I only saw people using iPhones, and well, of course, I've been only using Android like this one right here for the past, which it's been long time now since I started using Android phone, since 2016, which the first ever Android phone that I ever used, it was a Lava Iris 512 or something, which I still have it here, but it's just gone in the box. So it's still here, so let me show it to y'all right here. So, and here it is, my first phone ever. So, and for the complete 7 years that I've been experiencing with an iPhone, so this is actually not quite a change, because I'm just gonna use it for a while and to see how it actually feels when using an iPhone. And the only reason why I bought this iPhone right here is because it's just because I have this Apple Watch right here laying around in my house, which you can see that I'm wearing on right now. This Apple Watch right here, somehow it was just laying in the closet like for a long time, untouched, and until when I look up inside the closet, I saw this thing right here inside, which it's just but when my kind man kinda possessed in my heart, so I start to getting this thing to use. Like, I just wanna wear it without an iPhone, but even though this thing only connects with iPhones, so there is no way to connect it up with an Android. But if I wanted to connect that to an Android, I'm probably going to root everything inside on an Apple Watch. Like, I just want to set up with an Android phone that it's actually gonna be like, it's just gonna end well. But even though it only supports iPhones, this is a Apple Watch Series 3 right here from probably 2015 or 2014, I don't even sure, but I guess it's probably around that time. This iPhone right here, it comes to the solve. So I started to set up my iPhone right here with the Apple Watch, and guess what? It actually works. So it does work, so it does connect it up with Apple Watch well. And of course I did actually done a lot of experiments with this, like I want to use it as the front facing screen like on the most of the bloggers do. But even though for an Apple Watch right here, which is actually going to be used as a camera remote too, which it actually includes the viewfinder from the watch and both from the camera. I'm gonna open up the camera, and you can see that right now I have turned on the camera, and right now I'm going to open up camera remote. and it's gonna capture the image on the Apple Watch. Just wait for it, and there you can see that it's capturing a photo or image from the iPhone that I'm using. So you can see that it does work. So you can see here's what it looks like. And I'm aiming this at the screen right now, so you can't even see it that much because of how small the screen is. You got only a few controls. So you got the recording button as well as touch to focus and the crown for zoom, and for the other settings right here, it's just not that much. So you got only a switch to the front camera, which it actually does switch to the front camera. So let me show to y'all right here. So it's this. Never mind then. So I'm gonna say it actually does work on the Apple Watch because you know they are both Apple products. So yep, that's how it actually works. Apple stuff. But I'm not gonna buy out of that much. So only one piece. So and okay, back to the point. So and for my experience that I've been using this thing right here, I used to watch YouTube videos, including calling somebody on Discord, and also use it to receive calls from my dad and from my mom, which I'm gonna say it actually does a pretty good job. The microphone, it sounds really good when receive calls or whatever. And for the speakers right here, which, well, you know, they really sound good, and they are stereo speakers. So, but even though they actually hide the what's going on? So they actually hide the secondary speaker inside of the headset speaker, which is actually where the secondary speaker is beside the front camera. So, and even though they actually have a fake speaker grill on here, which is actually meant to be placed down a microphone on it, which is better design of these iPhone since and iPhone 7 because of how they remove the headphone jack out of it, and it lets you only use the adapter right here that it includes in the box. So this is basically a lightning to the headphone jack cable. So it's a pretty little cable right here. But even though it's actually a complete legit, so no replacement. So, but I just don't want to lose this thing though because of how small these things is. So I was just going to leave it in my along with my accessories for the wireless mic anyways. And well, of course, when it comes to using it to listen to music or watching YouTube videos, which, well, I'm gonna say it does a pretty good job at using the speaker and also watching YouTube videos, but even though it only max out at 1080p like on the typical smartphone these days. But well, yep, of course there's no 4K support on this iPhone at all. So just like my old Android phone that I use. So, but well, of course for experience right here, which I'm gonna say it does a pretty good job at using it as a daily driver. And I did actually use it to update all of that stuff, which is basically just some bug fixes and security updates for iOS 16, and that's it. So, and the last update that I ever have on this phone right here, it was from the last year. So, I mean, last year? I don't even sure, but I can't remember of what the last time that I updated this iPhone 10 here was. But, well, of course, I did actually last update like a long time ago. And even though there were only some bug fixes and some security updates, and that's it. So not much that I can do here. So I can't even upgrade this thing to an iOS 17 because, you know, it's not gonna work because this is a 2019 variant and it's a normal iPhone 10. So no upgrade to a higher one like an iOS 17 or 18, 19, 20. So, well, of course, I will have been stuck with an iOS 16. So, but, well, of course, it's gonna work anyways in the modern world. But even though from my experience that I've been having with this thing right here, which I'm gonna say it actually does work, but in the long term, I don't know. And the only experience that I have with this thing right here is that this thing right here that I got from a second hand, it has a degraded battery, which it actually just reduces the amount of time on the screen, and it's just going to drain down a lot when used too much. And even using the camera, it's gonna drain down so much. So, but even though that's not a big deal anyways, because since all of these things right here it's been completely used up for a long period of time, and well, of course, it's actually gonna degrade according to the nature of used secondhand. stuff. So for the medium term right here, that I've been using this iPhone right here for watching YouTube videos and even using to chat someone on Discord or using to receive calls from my mom and dad, which, well, of course, after all, those things all work. So, but even though having a degrading battery and everything right here on this phone is still works. So I'm going to use it as long as it will not work anymore. So I'm going to use it as long as possible until it starts to die out and I have to move on to my new phone. Okay, so there's something that I forgot to mention in my experience that I had with my iPhone 10. So, and first of all right here, when I was playing around and judging around on my iPhone 10 right here, I also discovered that this iPhone right here, it also supports wireless charging. So what wireless charging actually really does on this iPhone right here is that when you place an iPhone on its own proprietary accessories, it's going to start charging for you and is not going to get anywhere on the lightning connector itself, which instead of just using the lightning connector to charge it up, you will end up going to use its wireless option, which is an alternate way to get charged and the headphone jack at the same time. Which, guess what happened? Well, the phone, it heats up while over time it was actually kind of charging and it's just trying to charging, but well, it actually does try to charge, but somehow when it actually gets over time, it's just going to heat up and it stops charging on its own. But luckily on this iPhone right here, like many of their iPhones, they have a warning message that the charging is on hold and it stops charging, like for temporary. Alright, back to the main point. But for long-term use, well, I don't know, but maybe the time will tell. Alright, so this is it. My retrospective review plus my experience that I have with this iPhone 10 right here, and of course everything right here on iPhone works after all. So, and if you like this review content right here, so please leave a like, comment. Sorry, oops, I didn't mean to show that. So, and if you like this content right here, so please leave me a like, comment, and also the most important thing is, which is to press that red subscribe button. I'll be sure y'all for that, and I will see y'all there in the next video where I'm going to make more awesome quality content like this. แล้วก็อีกอย่างหนึ่งผมก็ไม่ได้พูดไทยมานานแล้วอะผมขอพูดสักหน่อยนะแล้วก็อย่าลืมกดไลค์แล้วก็กดแชร์แล้วก็กดปุ่มสีแดง subscribe ให้ผมด้วยนะครับให้เป็นกำลังใจให้ผมในการทำคลิปต่อๆไปนะครับ Okay, that's really it, or basically it for this video, and I will see you all there, all around, where I'm going to make more awesome quality content like this for y'all and for me too. And alas, for now, or else the Face ID wouldn't work someday. เพราะว่าอะไรเหรอถ้ามันลงน้ำหรือว่าลงทะเลโดนน้ำเค็มเรียบร้อย no Face ID, only password. But anyways, bye bye, สวัสดีครับ Woo!